In a world untouched by time, where the veil between the living and the dead was thin, there lay a village known only in whispers, Nightfall. It was a village lost to the records of history, a place that had disappeared from maps and minds alike. Some said it was abandoned, others claimed it was cursed. But none could speak with certainty, for no one who had ventured there had ever returned to tell the tale. The village, hidden deep in a valley encircled by thick, towering trees, was untouched by the outside world. There were no roads leading in, no signs of civilization. The only way to reach it was by following a narrow, winding path that seemed to appear only when the moonlight was at its fullest. It was as if the village itself was waiting for someone to find it, but only when the time was right. For years, the story of Nightfall had been nothing more than a myth to most people. But to those who knew the legends, it was a place of immense mystery, full of unsolved riddles. Among those who were fascinated by the village was a young woman named Avery. She had heard the story since childhood, and as she grew older, her curiosity about Nightfall only deepened. The idea of a village that existed outside of time, trapped in a perpetual state of twilight, haunted her thoughts. She had to know the truth. One crisp autumn evening, Avery packed a small bag with essentials: a flashlight, her camera, a notebook, and a map she had pieced together from various sources. She had studied the legends for years, gathering every bit of information she could find. The story spoke of a town that had vanished into the mists of time, where the boundary between past, present, and future had blurred. People who entered the village were said to be forever lost, never able to return to their old lives. With determination in her heart, Avery set out on the journey. The forest surrounding the village seemed to stretch on forever, the trees growing denser and darker as she ventured deeper. The air grew cooler, and an eerie silence enveloped her, as if the very forest was holding its breath. As she walked further into the woods, the path seemed to disappear, swallowed by the overgrown vegetation. But then, almost as if it were guiding her, the path reappeared, winding its way through the dense foliage. Avery continued on, undeterred by the growing sense of unease. After what felt like hours, the trees parted, and she found herself standing at the edge of a clearing. Before her lay the village of Nightfall. The village was just as the legends had described, a collection of old, crumbling houses, their windows shattered and doors hanging loosely on their hinges. The buildings seemed to have been abandoned for decades, yet there was something unsettling about the place. The silence was deafening, and there was an almost tangible sense of waiting in the air, as if the village itself was watching her every move. Avery stepped cautiously into the village, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The buildings were silent, but the air was thick with a strange energy, one that made her skin crawl. She explored the streets, each step taking her further into the heart of the village. The houses were filled with remnants of lives that had once been lived, old furniture covered in dust, pictures faded with age, and trinkets left behind as if time itself had abandoned them. As Avery ventured deeper into the village, she felt an odd sensation, as though something was following her. She turned, but there was nothing there. Just the empty streets, the abandoned houses, and the oppressive silence. Eventually, Avery found herself in the village square, where an old fountain stood in the center. The water had long since dried up, but the fountain still had an air of elegance, as though it had once been the pride of the village. It was here that she noticed something unusual, an inscription carved into the stone at the base of the fountain. It read, "When the clock strikes, the time will come." The words sent a chill down her spine. Avery had heard rumors of a clock tower in the village, one that had been abandoned long ago. It was said to be the heart of the village, the place where time had been manipulated, bending the very fabric of reality. The inscription seemed to be a warning, but of what, Avery wasn't sure. Determined to find answers, Avery made her way toward the clock tower. It loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the twilight sky. As she approached, she noticed that the tower was not as abandoned as the rest of the village. The clock face was still intact, though it was covered in layers of dust and grime. The hands of the clock moved slowly, ticking with a rhythm that felt unnatural, as though they were counting down to something inevitable. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a gust of wind swept through the village. The clock struck midnight. In that moment, everything changed. The world around Avery seemed to shift, the very fabric of reality warping before her eyes. Shadows danced on the walls of the buildings, flickering like ghosts. The air was filled with whispers, soft, indistinct voices that seemed to come from all directions. She felt a presence, something ancient and powerful, watching her from the shadows. And then, as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The village was silent once more. Avery stood frozen, her heart racing. She didn't know what had just happened, but she knew one thing for certain: she had uncovered the truth of Nightfall. The village was trapped, frozen in time, and it was waiting for someone to break the curse. With newfound resolve, Avery took out her notebook and began to document everything. She knew that her discovery was just the beginning. The mystery of Nightfall was far from over, and its secrets were waiting to be uncovered by someone brave enough to face the darkness.